little small block Ford I did the balancing video on, the 2870 stroke, and it's a 4025 bore. It has two carburetors on it. Manifold that's on it is a genuine Ford from back in the 60s when Ford was really involved in racing. Original valve covers. This motor goes in a 64 Falcon that actually ran back in the 60s in Trans Am. The original valve covers from that period. It's a pretty basic motor. They make pretty decent power. Wet sump, original style pan on it. There's 69 model 351 Windsor heads on it. Roller rocker arms, has a stud girdle on it. I have the brake back here. It's what they rate as a 2,000 horsepower dyno. This is where the strain gauge is mounted to this blue aluminum plate. Walk over to the other side here and show y'all. The strain gauge is actually right down in here. They do what they call dead weighting to calibrate it. There's my bucket of weight, which weighs 150 pounds. And then you have an arm here that bolts to the back of the brake that you hang the dead weight on, and that's how you calibrate it. I have a heat sensor on my brake, so I know the temperature of the brake and the strain gauge, so when I'm making dyno pulls, I can try to keep that consistent. Okay, pull up a run screen here with our electronics, our dyno channels, and the torque. That weight with the 150 pounds, 3 foot from the center of the brake hanging there, the weight of the arm and the bucket ends up being 462, 450 for the 150 pounds, 3 foot out, and then 12 pounds for the arm. Dead cold, no heat whatsoever in the brake other than ambient temperature. It's showing a reading of roughly 368, 367, right in that range on it. It will change once it warms up. We'll open a console, and with the correction factor that's figured in the brake right now, or the software, it shows that weight to be 501.9. I have a little temperature gauge right here. That's the actual temperature of the brake. So I know what it is cold. That's actually the oil temperature of the motor right now. So everything's dead cold. Warm everything up, and then I will go back and read dead weight the brake, and I'll show you how much it changes by the temperature of the brake warming up and all the electronics warming up. Got it warmed up. Motor's up to 162. Everything's pretty well warmed up. Good on it. Shut the ignition off on it. Torque is reading 0 right now. We'll go out here, and the oil temp's 122 and the brake temperature is 113. We'll go over here to our dead weight. And I don't think I can do this one-handed, so I'm going to set the camera down here. Alright, let it kind of settle down. Still at 113, 114, oil temp 127. Go back around here. It shows 192. It should read right now with it warmed up. Calibration, this number right here should be 162. We're down about roughly 2 foot-pounds of torque. So we're going to hit the calibrate button right here, and that recalibrates the brake. Open the console and picked up a little bit of torque. That's how I basically calibrate my dyno. Made a couple of dyno pulls, run into an issue. My monitor quit on me, had to go buy a monitor. Got restarted, made a couple of light dyno pulls. This is the last one we made. Slow down the playback rate, and we'll play this one. Kind of watch it run through the dyno pull here. Not doing too bad for what it is. About what they usually make, somewhere around in this range, maybe a little bit more. Peak number of 470. Number 2 exhaust is awful cold. Something's going on there. I'm going to have to look into that. Everything else seemed to be pretty decent on it. Once I printed the dyno sheet out, a couple things I noticed. This column here, the fuel flow and the fuel pressure. As they're making the pull, fuel pressure's going down. It really kind of takes a dip. The fuel volume has a couple of huge dips in it there. Decided is that the fuel pump that's on this motor, it's a manual pump, won't handle the power amount of fuel basically that this motor's trying to use. They ended up at 470 at 7,100 RPM. Pretty decent. Making 365 on the torque. The air fuel is not bad. It could use a little adjustment. Oil temp was right at 152. Engine temp 168. Inlet air temp around 79, 80 degrees. Oil pressure seemed to do fine. Number 2, EGT. I don't know if it's the probe. Could just be the probe, or there could actually be something going on. I kind of suspect maybe the probe has gone bad on it. Hardly any changes through the whole pull, so that's a pretty good sign. It's the probe. The rest of the EGTs weren't too bad. Number 7 is a little bit cold. Number 5, a little on the cold side. But overall, not too bad. Some jetting changes. Should fix it up. 8.5 seconds is what it took to make that pull. I do relatively slow pulls on when I do a dyno pull. It's a little more accurate. As soon as I get a fuel pump, I will go back, make some more pulls, get some more information. I'll probably change the probe on one exhaust, make sure that's straightened out on it. I might have to go to a bigger fuel line. It's similar to a tunnel ram manifold, but it's with the carburetors off, looking down in it. It looks more like a dual plane type manifold. And also the line from the fuel pump up to the fuel flow meter here is only a 6. We may have to step it up to an 8, but I don't think that's an issue. On the other side of the fuel flow meter, I've got an 8 running to his fuel log, which only has a 6 inlet on it. We may have to do something with it. But overall, I think it's going to be pretty good. 470 out of this cubic inch motor with a factory Ford 351 Windsor head. Not bad. Most of them I do are 480 to 500 horse range motors. So without any tuning, we're already at 470. Should be able to get there pretty easy. Thought I'd do another little whiteboard display, help people understand a little more about the difference between observed and corrected power on that small block Ford. These numbers over here are the observed numbers. The temperature here, 69 degrees, barometric pressure, 2868, 33% humidity. That air density rate is 93.66. Observed with no correction factor, when I dynoed, it made 430, 336. We go over here to standard correction, same weather conditions, same pull. Correction factor for the temperature is 1.009. Correction factor for the barometer, 1.043. Correction factor for the humidity, 1.008. Total correction factor of 1.061. The corrected power is 470, 364.8, basically 365. That's the difference between a standard number and a corrected number. I really like looking at the observed numbers. If you were going to the racetrack that day, this is the power you would have. This is the jetting that you would need. You would have to use this air density rate here to correct any changes that you were going to make. If the air density changed, put it in your weather station, make your changes. Also, I'll explain the dead weight brake. Watching the video, it may be hard to see everything. Okay, the big round circle, my drawing's not very good. That's actually the dyno brake. This right here is the arm that the weight hangs on. It weighs 12 pounds. From center of the brake to where the weight hangs is 3 feet. I have a lead bucket. It's got 150 pounds in it. 3 feet out with a 12-pound arm, the weight that's hanging on the brake reads 462. In theory, when you make a pull, if you left all this on there, as soon as the motor made 362 foot-pounds of torque or more, it would actually start to lift this weight. I've never tried it. Maybe a little dangerous. Probably not ever going to try that. The dyno brake is basically a torque converter. You got bleed at the top. You have water coming in on the front side, water coming out of the back side. There's a restrictor and the water coming out, and a load valve here that you supply the amount of water going in. The difference between what's coming in and what's coming out is how the load is produced. It's basically trying to shear the water inside the brake. The rotor inside the brake, if you look at it, may have to go to art school before this is all done. It has fins sticking in it like so. And there's a bearing in the center, and these fins stick up. The rotor that's actually turning, if you look at it, it looks the same. There's a set of rotors that stick out on each side like so, and you have your drive shaft that goes between it. As these fins go by these fins, this real tight tolerance, it tries to shear the water. That's what produces the heat inside the brake. That's why you want to keep consistent temperature when you're dynoing, because as the heat expands the aluminum brake and rotor, it changes the clearance and will change how it applies the load. That's pretty much how a brake works. Really don't know what else to add. If you've got some questions, put them in the comment section. I'll try to go through them like I usually do and answer a lot of the questions if I can. Don't get too complicated with me. I'm pretty simple as far as how I do things. Appreciate everybody watching. Also, I have t-shirts available if anyone's interested. You can go to Midwest Street Cars. They're actually offered to sell them, ship them, handle all that part for me, being I'm a one-man shop. And if you go there, definitely purchase some of their stuff. They've helped me a lot with the videos. I appreciate everything they've done for me. And you have questions, put them in the comment, and we'll see what kind of questions we get and see what kind of answers. And like I said, I will get a new fuel pump, get it on there, get some dyno pulls, show you what the final numbers are and what changes I made to get there. Have a good day. Thank you very much.